Sweet.
So, hello everyone, and welcome to another indie author interview. I am joined today this morning by Ryen Santana, who is the author of Sanguine as well as A Veil in Twilight. So, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. I have my books stacked next to me.
I love it. I love it. The beautiful author copy. Um,
Thank you.
all right, so let's just jump right into it. So, tell me a little bit about what made you decide that you wanted to be an author and what your path to publication through indie was.
Okay, so when I was a kid, all I did, literally all I did, was make up stories for all of my stuffed animals. And this is from like when I could talk to when I started writing fan fiction about Edward Cullen's sparkly penis. The Marble Man, the Marble Man. But yeah, so I originally started once I learned how to read. I think my mom said I asked her some questions. She was like, I think you were like 3.5. She was like, you really just wouldn't shut up and you wouldn't let me stop reading your books. And granted, I was the youngest. So she was like, I didn't have time. So you just taught yourself. And youngest of three. So goodness. But yeah. And so I started just constantly telling stories, definitely like tall tales about my stuffed animals becoming like heroic Herculean efforts of I don't even know. Um, but then I started writing fan fiction, especially around the time of when I was like 10 and had unbridled access to the internet, which is not healthy for anyone. I quickly discovered Wattpad. Uh,
Mhm.
and I was like, oh, what's this? And yeah, so I have some horror stories of like my first interactions with fan fiction, but a lot of it was like, oh my God, my parents sold me to Justin Bieber. How could they do that? Oh no, I'm Edward Cullen's. Yeah, not my brightest moments, but it was definitely the introduction into authordom of
Mhm.
the only I was definitely like kind of antisocial as a kid. And so the only like true friendships I had, which sounds so cliche, especially as an author, is between my characters and I.
Mhm.
And so I was like, hey, you guys are weird as hell. I'm also weird, but I'm the one that's making you weird. So I'm sorry. But yeah, so originally from there, I just really wanted to have the full creative control over my first release, like officially into the world release. Um, because yeah, my fan fiction like never got any engagement or anything like that. It was kind of just like in the ether. I probably had like one reader. And then I lost access to the internet when they were found. Oh, so yeah, if you read any of the reason why A Veil of Twilight is called The Veil of Twilight and it's set in archipelago is because it was twilight in the archipelago and it was Edward constantly glittering on an island of my own evil machinations. This man was glittery 24/7, constantly sunburned because I wanted him to be. Um, but yeah, so A Veil of Twilight is definitely an homage to my creepy kid fan fiction. But yeah, so I wanted the full creative control over kind of everything in the aspect of it. Like I wanted it was a lot of effort. It was a lot of effort, which I'm sure you understand. Um, especially speaking to other indie authors and things like that, that you're like, Jesus, do you guys like ever sleep? Like,
Mhm.
like, are you guys okay? We're not okay. We're not okay at all. And so I kind of just like started with the intro into like, all right, what the heck is publishing? How do I even get published? And then I really grew tired of waiting and just constantly getting rejected by agents. And so I was like, my self esteem can't handle this anymore.
Mhm.
Like, I literally opened up an email from this morning from when I was querying my book
Mhm.
and I got rejected. And was like, I sent this to you like a year and a half ago.
Mhm.
And yeah, So that's another thing where it only takes one person to like read your book and like it, and they have the bandwidth to do such things with it. But I grew very impatient with the 3 months to 6 months to even a year and a half of someone having your manuscript and just being like, nah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm also really odd and I write very quickly, which my editor is like, are you okay? No, I'm not. So Sanguine was like the brain baby of I read Thrum by Meg Smitherman, and
Yes.
that book like literally altered my brain chemistry. I tell her this all the time, and I was an ARC reader for Swallowed, and I was like, you need to keep making these because you're unlocking new facets of my brain. I feel like that Lucy movie where she only has like 10%. And then I read like one of Meg's books and I'm like, all right, new 5% unlocked. But my dog died from cancer. And then I read Thrum and I was like, I can't sleep. I'm so sad. And this book altered my brain chemistry. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, Sanguine came into focus. Um, and that was put together in a week.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So Sanguine, I think from writing to editing to formatting was 10 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that obviously doesn't exist with traditional publishing timelines. And so I was like, I think indie for me, like, I think it would take a lot for me to sign rights away to any of my books now, just because, unless if it's like audio, but I published my audiobook with Riley Kubera for A Veil of Twilight. And oh, she's wonderful. But yeah, this is diverging into many different topics. I could talk all day long because all I do is talk to a 2-year-old. So I'm like, what do you mean you want to have an intellectual conversation? Borderline. I mean, I'm talking about Edward Cullen like glistening on an archipelago because I didn't want him to be sad in Seattle. But yeah.
But you kind of started going into the next question, which is perfect. So, how do you write? Do you plan? Do you pants? Do you plants? What do you do?
Okay, so Sanguine was 100% like I was just writing in a borderline manic state. I was like, all right, I am so severely depressed. Like, I was going through a very tough period. And so I was like, all right, I'm just going to write whatever comes to my mind. And I had the theory for Sanguine before it was originally going to be a novel, like a full novel called Scarlet Sins. And I was like, nah, mm-mm, cutting that. So I had the slight bones for it, but yeah, without putting any spoilers, it was the ending which you read, but it was going to be like a way more in-depth thing. But I don't think people would read like 500 pages of pure ambiguity of like what is happening. I
Mm.
mean, maybe they would, but I didn't have the patience to write it.
Mm-hmm.
But I would definitely say I am a cherry picker when it comes to my outline. I have like this super detailed outline, and I'm like, all right, this is what's going to happen chapter by chapter. And then, surprise, surprise, it doesn't happen. It does not happen at all. The characters write themselves. And so I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean you guys just did that? A few of my readers will know exactly what chapter I'm talking about in A Veil of Twilight, which you will know soon because it's currently being shipped to your house. Um, it's in the later portions, but I did not write that into my outline. It did not. It was in a dream. I literally woke up and I was like, this needs to happen. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to make this happen, but it needs to happen. And so I definitely would say I'm a plantser,
Mm-hmm.
mostly pantser. And then I have to like create a mind map of where my story has gone already and then where it's kind of diverged from the outline. And yeah, definitely a plantser, mostly pantser, like pants on fire. Like just nothing ever makes sense until I send it off to my editor and she's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I don't know.
Maybe you do. Maybe you could figure
Yeah,
it out.
I'm like, can you uncode this? I'm like, she's like my soulmate as an editor. She is great. Her name's Stacy, and oh my God, yeah. No, she reads through my absolute BS and is just like, is this what you meant? Like in in Sanguine, she's British.
Hmm.
And so I wrote like I think the redcoats, and she was like, they are not redcoats. I was like, oh sorry, US history coming back in. It's like they'd be blue coats. They're cops. They're not like the government. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. So it definitely helps me a lot with that because I definitely write a lot more historical fiction. Um, but yeah, nonetheless, it's Lansing with a lot of chaos. Like sprinkle in a bunch of, oh, that'd be good. Now I just need to make that work. And then it makes my manuscripts take like 30 times longer.
And I think that that kind of goes into the next part is like, you know, you do write two different genres, right? So fantasy and then historical fiction. And so, I mean, what do you like about writing both? What makes you want to write both?
So my next, I would say I write like historical fiction
Fantasy.
fantasy.
Yeah.
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 I
Yeah.
think it
Oh my
marries
God.
the
Can we make
two.
it a word? Fiction to see or something like that? We
It's
need to make,
his hist fic fantasy.
yes.
Yeah. I have no idea. It's definitely like not reinventing the wheel or anything, but I just think I read Divine Rivals and
Oh,
that literally altered my brain
looking
chemistry.
at it on my shelf over there.
Yeah, like I just got a signed copy from my
Oh,
local Barnes and Noble, and I was like,
Rebecca,
I
so
already have 3 copies of this book. This is where consumerism is devouring me because I'm like, but Rebecca Ross signed this
find
one.
it. Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I read Divine Rivals, and that was like, this is my genre. Like, this is it. I already had completed A Veil of Twilight. I originally thought that I wanted to write like more urban fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you know, maybe not. I like historical and kind of bringing everything into our world because like our world is obviously so chaotic, but we don't have dragons. And so like why not add like
We should.
dragons? Yeah, exactly. Our already messed up history. And so yeah, I think that's what kind of pulls me to historical fiction fantasy.
Mm.
It could just be historical fantasy. But yeah, I also really like I had this one professor in college and he was probably the catalyst for me being so interested in history. I have a background in art history. Um, and so I think that it like doesn't, it's literally the most useless major ever, unless you're trying to be like an art museum curator. And I was like, I like working from home once COVID hit. I was like, um, and so yeah, this one professor that I had, he really just opened my mind to how cool history actually is because he kind of taught the winning side, the losing side, the neutral side of like he taught history without a bias. And I think that that
Mm-hmm.
was super important to kind of making me not hate history of just like, oh my God, like this is so boring. And so while I love urban fantasy and like more mainstream fantasy, I think A Veil of Twilight was written more so for the mainstream, but Sanguine was written for me. Like
Mm.
it is 100% my brain is Sanguine. And I'm sure you're talking to me like, what? Your brain is Sanguine? Like, what
I
do
love
you mean? Yeah, it's dark. I write grim dark fantasy. Like there's a lot of darkness. And so yeah, I really just love everything that encompasses kind of like all of the historical fiction. And it's funny because I don't really read a ton of it other than like Outlander. And then I
it.
watched all of Outlander because Jamie is sexy.
Mhm.
and, and so I think that yeah, I think that that sparked it, that it even is a thing. But then add in Divine Rivals and then everything else. And I was like, this is coming together. It's coming together right now. And yeah, so I think that's probably what drew me to it.
And so as it comes together, what do you need in your writing space to stay focused and on task?
Oh my God. Okay, so this is gonna make me sound absolutely insane, but I can only write when my toddler goes to bed. And so there is
That
no,
sounds insane.
yeah, there's no routine. There's like absolutely no, I write from like right next to him while he's sleeping and I'm like, don't look over, mommy's writing smut. Like this is uncomfortable for me too.
It's so funny.
But it's the only way that I can ensure that I have the writing time. He goes
Mhm.
to bed at like 6 p.m. and then I write until like 2 a.m. And that's all I can do. And that's how I get the solid chunks done. But then the rest of the day, I'm just like full mom bee of, oh, yeah, you want to build some Legos? All right, buddy. Like, all right, sounds good. But yeah, I wish I could say I had any sort of routine. Like I Pavlov belled myself with like a candle or something where I'm like, oh, this is writing time. I used to do that with work. And before I became a stay-at-home mom, I I definitely like Pavlov belled myself of like, all right, the candle is flickering, time to work. Like, and so I wish I had something like that. Like maybe once my kids are older, I can have a way more rigid routine that is a little bit more productive. But currently, I'm just rolling with the punches.
Right
Of
now it works for you.
yeah, like I, I really wish that it was anything more, like, oh, I sit outside in the sun and I soak in vitamin D while I'm writing the D. Like, there's nothing of that sense of like, yeah, I write in the dark, listening to one song on repeat for hours. And that's it.
Hey, whatever works for you and makes those juices flow, we're good.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
other other than practical things, obviously, that we just discussed, what gets in your way as an author?
My toddler. Not actually. He is definitely a source of inspiration because you see like the way that he falls off of stuff. I'm like, I didn't even know the human body could do that. So I'm like, all right, I guess I would describe that as like a lawn chair. And I mean that in the best way of I'm a very attentive parent, I swear. But I would definitely say my kryptonite is having too many ideas and the which is a blessing and a curse. But I would definitely say having too many ideas and not the patience to fully see them through sometimes.
Hmm.
Because I'll be like 50,000 words deep into a manuscript and I'll be like, I hate this. Like, I have written too much of this and now I hate it. And so I would say that the impulses to have new projects, like a new shiny thing, new creative ideas flowing, is definitely my kryptonite.
Relate to that. I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Um, and so let's go into talking about your books. And so we can talk about whichever one you want. So you can choose whatever one you want for this. So if you had to describe one of your books in a sentence or less, what would that sentence be?
Oh God.
The hardest question.
Let's see. Okay. So I'll probably do my next release, which is coming out April 8th. Um, and that's The Ravens of London. And I would say, are we talking like comps or just like synopsis one
No,
sentence?
synopsis.
Oh God, okay. Okay. Love drives a god to madness, and probably no one will survive, like in the entire book. Like everyone is gonna die. And I think that everyone is gonna be pretty upset with me. But I would definitely say, yeah, love has driven a god to madness. and no one will survive his wrath for sure.
I like it.
Yeah, it's
Good. Huh.
definitely dark. It's very dark. It's also based in London and it's a historical fantasy.
And so, who was your favorite character to write in The Ravens of London and why?
Oh my God. Okay. So Callum is our main character. The book is written mostly from his perspective. I'm a big fan of multi point of view, um, but it's mostly his perspective. He's based off of Killian Murphy, like through and through, just looks wise, and specifically Tommy Shelby and Peaky Blinders,
Mhm.
but like make him an almighty being and like really hot. And a little bit more crazy than Tommy Shelby and bloodthirsty. Um, but Callum, his name is Callum Ravenscroft, very, very suave. Um, and he is definitely my favorite because he is so brutal to write because he is like the antithesis of what I usually
Mm.
write of like the strong female main character, um, whatever, but basing at least writing a man, like the book is mostly from his point of view. And I feel like being able to write like a total piece of shit. Like Callum is great, but he is garbage. Like he is absolutely trash. Like as a human being, he is a god and has the true deity levels of like selfishness,
Hmm.
of like vengefulness, and he's basically like imagine like every ex-boyfriend you've ever had and all the worst parts of them. That's Callum, but like make him really desirable and have a great character arc. And that's probably not sounding very enticing.
That sounds enticing to me.
Yeah, no, he's majorly red
But
flags, but
maybe I'm messed up too. I
yeah,
mean, I am.
I know. Yeah, it's definitely writing a lot of baggage and kind of like trying not to self-insert any of my own traumas into him, but
Mm.
also creating like this space where he is learning and growing, even though he is like literally as old as time itself. Like he's, you know how Kingfisher is like 1700, whatever.
Yes.
Now imagine Callum is like as old as the stars. Like he is filled with baggage, like addiction. He really loves sex workers. He really does, even though he's like married. Um, so it's hard to write a character like that where it's all of the least like tropes of like,
Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
no, he's a cheater, but it's like I'm gonna make you like him. Like I swear, I love him and I hate him so much, but he is my favorite to write because he's so multifaceted and he's kind of crazy. I
Mm.
love him, but he is very very hard to write because he is very hard to make likable. But I feel like I'm doing a good job so far of not to toot my own horn, but of making him human, even though he's a god. And so yeah, it's very difficult to balance those things of like, all right, how far can I push him of being a terrible human being or a terrible god, whatever you are, while still making him likable and agreeable to a point where people will be like, all right, I'll continue reading. I won't just DNF because this guy's POS. Like,
And so does that tie into the next question where it was the most challenging character to write, or is there another challenging character in the book that was difficult?
I would say he is probably the hardest character I've ever written. And it's taken so long. Like I've been writing this
I literally
manuscript.
cannot wait to read this. I just like I like the way that you're talking about. I'm like,
You're like, whoa, I'm
pretty
making
sure I
red
signed up
flags
for
look
your newsletter.
green.
I tried to sign up for your newsletter. I don't know if my phone let me do it, but if I didn't,
I will send you the arc form.
that's what I signed up for your
Yeah.
newsletter for. I was like,
Yeah, it'll be before it goes to proofreading, it'll go to you guys, whatever. Um, but yes, so I would definitely say the hardest part of like this entire book is Callum and kind of it's going to end in a way that people are going to be like, what did you just do?
And can you say if it's a standalone or not?
It is part of a duology. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Oh,
the next one,
thank God.
yeah. Yeah. So
Less
there,
series, less trilogies, more duologies.
yes. And so, like, I love writing standalones, like, especially small novellas and things like that, because they're just fun to kind of crank out and get a backlist going. Um, but yeah, I love duologies. Like, Divine Rivals literally changed my world. Like, every single aspect of it is just phenomenal. Like, Rebecca Ross is my favorite writer ever, hands down. I love that woman. I literally can't even finish Ruthless Vows because I don't want it to be done yet. And so I read like,
Pick it up.
yeah, I read like a page a week. And it's like if you just savor it because then it's just not done. But I know you're a super fast reader. You're like fanatic
I'm not
and nuts. Like what was your last year's read? Like 900?
907 books.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm crazy. But and I said in my post that there are two secrets. One, having ADHD. Like
Mhm.
my brain just work. It's kind of like the way I can describe it is like what is it the steno what they do in the court. It's stenography.
Stenography, I think.
So like it's all like shorthand, like that's how my brain works. So like it
Yeah.
works that fast. And then audiobooks. I listen to audiobooks almost all day, every day.
Okay, I do too. My poor
So
son.
I'm reading like 5 books a week just for audio because I
Yeah.
listen to it all day at work because it helps me like not talk to my coworkers and distract them and also like keep me on task because I have to be doing two things at once. I can't just sit there and I can't. It's just so I'm a little crazy with that. But I
And
still
it's
have
amazing.
181 series that are unfinished that I need to finish.
That's crazy.
But
That's amazing though.
it's because I read what was out and then I forgot about it. That there were like other ones coming out, and so I have a list now. So I'm gonna try to get that down. The first one I'm gonna finish is Melissa Blair's series. I don't know what it's called actually. I know the last book is An Honored Vow, but I forget what it's called. That's horrible, but I'm gonna finish that one because finally book 4 is out, so finally I can finish that. So
Okay,
positive.
good. Yeah, I think that's also my kryptonite is I forget about books unless if it's like they're already all out and I can just binge them.
Hmm.
I just forget about books. Like I had just finished Blood of Hercules and I was like, "Oh my God, now I have to wait
I
until
have an
October."
audiobook sitting in my control
I
now.
loved the audiobook. The little snake bestie is my favorite. The like
I love that.
I loved her. It reads like a fan fiction, which is obviously my favorite because it's my roots. So like when you're physically reading it, you're like, yeah, line by line, like line by line, versus just like chunky paragraphs of like your typical fiction that's like been Chicago manuscript edited of just like
Mhm.
freaking blocks. And I'm like, I can't read this. Like my brain doesn't work like that. And so yeah, I ate that shit up. That was my last book of 2024. I finished it at like 9 p.m.
Well, I read it. I will definitely chat with you about it.
Please do.
That's I have to read a couple other ones before that, but I have it. It's waiting. Okay. And so the next question is, what was your favorite scene or quote from this book, Ravens of London?
Oh my God. Hold on. I actually just sent one to our mutual friend. Um, and she was like, Jesus Christ. Just 1 second. I was going through and editing.
Yeah.
Um, so okay. Sorry.
I'm scared.
So it's not anything crazy. It's kind of just more like a hard-hitting line where this is a part of one of his dialogues. The best nightmares are the ones that linger after waking, not the ones that jolt you awake screaming. And so it's
Beautiful.
it was one of those where that was just like the most recent line that I can think of. at least that I could scroll to and read verbatim. But yeah, it's definitely one of those where specifically in that part of the book, it's only like a quarter through, and he's kind of just like going a little bit insane. He's looking for his lost love and literally tearing apart the world. And so he's like, he is the god of nightmares. Not like your typical like shadow daddy, like, oh, darkness. No, like he like dives into your mind and shows you the worst possible things you could possibly ever dream up or think of just to torture you for fun. Um yeah, so that's Callum in a nutshell. He's like driven by love, but then he's also like just a natural tormentor, torturer, like dark god. Um, and so he has these kind of epiphany moments of like, yeah, the best nightmares are the ones that linger, not the ones that make you scream. And so, and it's also kind of true because I've been having crazy freaking dreams since I had my son. But yeah, that's all I got.
And so the last question of this section, you kind of answered a little bit with Callum about who, that exists in the world kind of inspired his looks and what he
Yeah.
looked like. Anybody else in your book that you can think of?
Okay, so his sister, Nora, um, she would be Anna Taylor-Joy,
Oh,
100%. And then, hold on, let me look up her name. She's the actress of Nikita. Do you remember
oh,
that
I
show?
yes, I did watch it. Is it Lindsay Fonseca?
No, hold on. What is her name?
I think I did.
Maggie Q would be
Ah,
one of my favorite characters that I've been writing. Um, Her name is Lena Novak, and so she would be Maggie Q through and through. Like I literally based her off of her. Um, and then yeah, other than like random Pinterest models when I'm building my character boards, I think
I mean,
Killian
you had
Murphy.
some people to go through to go to.
Yeah,
So that's really
yeah,
good.
Killian Murphy, but like make him.
I love that name,
I
Killian.
love.
I love
I
that.
love yeah, that's oh that man. My husband knows my obsession with him, and apparently so do all of my readers because like I will get a ridiculous amount of Killian Murphy memes every single day.
That is
It's awesome. But yeah, definitely those three are the first that spring to mind.
perfect. All right, so let's go on to the last part of our interview, which are just some questions that are just fun and things that I would want to know. Other than reading and writing, because we'll get to the reading, what are things that you enjoy in your life as far as hobbies and things like that, despite having a toddler?
So pre mom Ryan, I was a rock climbing instructor, and that was like my favorite thing to do. I love swimming, mostly in the ocean. I way prefer it over a pool just because my skin sucks in chlorine. Um, and yeah, let's see. I liked rock climbing, I like swimming, and it's gonna sound so cliche, but like I hate hiking. I despise it.
I like
Unless it's
walking in the woods.
yes, yes. I like laying down and decomposing into the ground. Like
Yeah.
that's that's what I enjoy doing. I like hiking when it's done, but I will generally only hike if it's to water or to do something.
Mm.
I do just like walking in the woods though, like 100%. My parents live in the Appalachians, and so they're
I
terrifying.
hopefully you're walking during the day.
Yes, I'm not whistling at night. I'm
Okay,
not.
you need to write a book with that. It's
Honestly, I might. I might
my
do like a
book.
Skinwalker novella in the Appalachians.
You can't say that word.
And that in the Appalachians?
No, the S word. You can't
Oh
say
yeah,
that because
yeah.
it makes them come.
I'm
No,
in New York right now, so I think I might be okay.
I'm like, but in my debut there I put some of like that's like the baddie is like
Ooh.
that because I was like obsessed with watching like there's this girl on TikTok that I saw like that she lives in Appalachia and she was talking all about it and like if you heard it, no you didn't, like all that sort of
Yeah.
thing. So
When
like
they go,
I,
hey, no, you didn't.
yeah,
No, you
because
didn't.
my husband 100% like I mean we live in Connecticut but still like we kind of like we live like in the like more in like a rural and there have been times where I mean our house is haunted by family members which is fine but
Like, can you guys get out when I shower?
I
Like,
just like I mean whenever I turn this light on whenever I'm like I don't want to see being mean, but like whenever like my husband and I are like bickering or whatever, and I turn this light on, one of the bulbs always flickers, and it's his I know it's his grandma, and so I'm like, all right, Mimi, like I get it, but like he's being annoying. Um,
chill. He gets food,
yeah,
he gets water, he gets
he's
sunlight.
fine, he's good. But sometimes like when I'm not home, like he'll hear stuff, and he's like Taylor, and I'm like. I swear, like I wasn't home. Like
That's
and so I'm like, you did not
crazy.
hear that, Michael. Don't talk back to it. Um, it's so funny, but you should write about that.
A mimic. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
hiking.
there's
But
this.
what I've gotten lost hiking. And
Yeah,
that's why I
it's
didn't like it. So that's why I'll walk in the woods. There's like in southern Connecticut, there's it's called Sleeping Giant and it's called Sleeping Giant because like the mountain looks like a sleeping giant.
Mhm.
But there's like a what is it, gravel like road like up to a castle. And so I'm like, okay, I'll follow the road, but like I can't go throughout the actual woods and follow the markers because I got lost once and it was the worst because
Yeah.
they have no cell phone service and you can't find where you're going.
Oh no.
It's
Yeah.
terrifying. I was like,
Yeah.
oh
No,
God, I'm gonna
absolutely.
die.
There's there's been some things. Maybe I'll do like a one of those Appalachian Trail hiker
Yeah.
romances where she falls for the SKIN walker. And
Oh
he's a
my
fellow
God,
hiker, or is he?
that'd be really cool. Okay, I like it. Um,
Ideas brewing. Ideas
all right.
brewing.
Let me get my Goodreads up because I'm going to ask you for some authors and books that you'd recommend. You've
Okay.
already named three that well, two, but then our mutual friends. So I've read all those,
Yeah.
but we should mention them anyway.
Yes. So definitely The Shadow of Polaris by D.L. Hoopt. That is a fire. That's our mutual friend. It
Fire.
is a great fucking book. Great book. And then The Trouble with Love and Ink by Harriet Ashford is my favorite beach read. I'm not usually like a fluffy romance girl, but like a pink book gets me. Oh my God, it gets
Oh,
me.
it's very pretty.
And she's also like one of the most wonderful human beings ever. She's a school teacher, like so kind. My current read is Split or Swallow. Um, and now that I think it's Kiss of the Basilisk because she got picked up by Bloom.
Good
Uh,
for her.
yeah, which is amazing. This book is freaky. This book is freaky,
So
man.
what it says is this book is not safe to read at work. You've been warned.
Yeah, so like the first thing that you see, praise for Split or Swallow, guaranteed to make you orgasm, unlike men. And I was just like,
This is great.
yeah, I am reading this and I'm buddy reading it with my best friend. And she's just sending me like gifts and memes throughout the middle of the night. She's in California, and so we have a 3 hour time difference.
Oh.
And I'm like, girl, go to sleep. Like, she's like, I can't. This is so good. And so, yeah, so far, I'm only like 3 chapters in. They're already doing freaky stuff. It's best to go into this book with no knowledge of what it is whatsoever because I have no idea what's going on, period.
I love
I
that.
I am like, whoa. Whoa. But yeah, so I think it's Kiss of the Basilisk now. But yeah, anything by Meg Smitherman,
Mm,
specifically Thrum.
I love
Swan comes out the 28th, and that That book is good. That book is freaky. um, anything by Kurt Vonnegut too. I love Kurt Vonnegut.
Mm.
You'll see him a lot in specifically my next couple of books that are more dystopian and less historical
How do
fiction.
you spell the name?
Kurt Vonnegut. So this is another book. Wait, where is it? Where is it?
When it does that. Okay.
Vonnegd. And Look at the Birdie is really good. I literally just have stacks of books near me all the time. The Cat's Cradle is really good.
Oh, he wrote Slaughterhouse Five.
Yeah, Slaughterhouse Five is probably one of my favorite books of all time. Like that is sci-fi, his own biography, like a sci-fi autobiographical fiction,
Mm.
which is crazy. It's about like his time at Dresden. Oh my God, it's amazing. And he's also so prolific in just like his stance as writing is so atmospheric, and it is just like he is kind of my, I don't even know how to put it. He is like my golden standard
Yeah.
of writing of
Mhm.
like how like Harrison Bergeron is one of his short stories. And that is like I would recommend reading it. It made into a movie. I haven't watched the movie, but Harrison Bergeron, it's on Spotify of him reading it. It's like 14 minutes long. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. It's basically like about this community of people. Well, it's Earth in like 100 some odd years, and everyone is the exact same. So they have like mental, they put like handicaps on you. So you're the exact same as everyone else. So if you're too smart, you're dulled down by like a brain sink or something like that. Or if you're too strong, you have weights put on you. So you're the exact same as everyone else. Oh, it is absolutely fantastic.
That's
It
really
is a
interesting.
dystopian nightmare, but it's also so fascinating.
Hmm.
And it's, oh, it's so good. I could talk about Kurt Vonnegut like all day long.
I love
And
that.
also all of his artwork is fantastic. And I love him. It's a shame that he's gone.
Such good recommendations. I love it. I love it. Um, and so if you had to give advice to an aspiring author or a younger you, what would that advice be?
I would say the number one question that I get is like, how do you even do it? And it's like, you just have to write. Like, you really just have to write bad, write often. It's usually really, really bad in the beginning. And you're like, wow, this story doesn't make any sense. But I feel like I really got my chops in short stories and trying to formulate how to put one cohesive story in like 6,000 words or less. That always was a really challenging thing. Um, and definitely just write. Like, I think people put authors on pedestals because they're like, you can create these stories in your mind. And it's like, no, a lot of it is like formulaic. Like, you have this outline of where you think you want the story to go, and it doesn't always end up going that way. And I would definitely say just write, read a lot, find your voice, find your topics that you want to write about, read that genre, read the classics, read one star reads, like do kind of everything. Like I've had my fair share of like absolutely imposter syndrome causing reads to like, all right, I think I can do this. Like, and definitely like just read, write, write as much as you can, even if it's like a word a day, and you'll get there eventually. Like
I
if you
love
just do it. Like write bad is probably the best thing because it does not need to be perfect. I definitely suffer from perfectionism, and I think that's the best thing I've ever done is just write in pen, write bad, and don't cross out words. Just
that.
go. And yeah, so I'd definitely say to other authors, the first draft doesn't need to be perfect. Even your first book doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be what it is.
It
And
needs
if
to be.
it's, yeah, it just needs to be like it needs to exist in the world. And like when you're published, like your book is there forever. Like
Mhm.
that is, unless if you take it from the market, but even then it's going to always be on someone's bookshelf or someone's Kindle or anything like that. It's always going to be there. Like you've made your mark on the world by just showing up for yourself and writing, even if it's bad.
I love it. Very good advice.
Thank you.
And so when you write from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m., are you listening to music? Does it
Yes.
depend? Words or no words? What goes on in here?
So my best friend is gonna die when she gets to this point of the podcast because I listen to one song pretty much the entire time. It's
Really?
yeah.
The same one?
Yeah, it's like a cycle of about four songs, but predominantly one. They're all by Artemis. He's like the TikTok sensation, like the I Like the Way You Kiss Me song.
Hmm.
That song has written like all of my books.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I was like I think in his top 0.1% on Spotify. And I every single one of his songs was like my top five. And yeah,
I love
I
it.
don't know what it is. It just like scratches an itch that's in my brain and lets me turn it off and just like get into the story.
Mm.
Because it's either that or it's like my toddler breathing very heavily next to me. And if I don't immediately turn on music, I just like doom scroll or watch Netflix, which is not conducive to producing books.
Mhm.
And so I have, I guess that's part of my routine, I suppose, is I put on music. I have my like noise canceling headphones that I put on and kind of just go from there. And that's really like about it.
I like it. I like it. And so final question, do you have any upcoming signings or events going on that we could meet you at, Ryan?
Yes, I have your event, February 8th and 9th. It is the book bash, correct? Yeah.
Hmm.
And so I will be there with all my books, Sanguine, Veil of Twilight, and then um I don't have much until October. I think it's October 18th. I'll be at the Nevermore event in Tybee Island, Georgia.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't have many things going on in the middle of the year because I will be having a baby
Hmm.
in June. So I'll have a brief hiatus for like 3 months and then I go on to uh, Georgia. But yeah, so I
Awesome.
don't really have any signings other than the ones that I have with you. And that's what, March or something?
There's one in March.
One in March, and
We
that's in,
actually haven't, we have February, March, April, May, June. So we're doing pretty good for the first half of the year. I got to start looking at second half of the year, but we're doing pretty good for the first half. So I'm very
yeah,
excited and I'm really happy that you joined our Legion. And it was really, really awesome because then I was like, oh right, I need to read that book. And then I was like, I love this book.
yeah. Sanguine, I've heard, has altered some brain chemistries, which,
It's just like I love Stalking Jack the Ripper,
yeah,
and I love that lore. Like I will watch any documentary about it. Like, did you watch the documentary where like the guy thought he was related to H.H. Holmes and like all
yes.
I loved that documentary. I
Yeah.
thought it was so cool. And obviously the way it ended, like all right, but like so cool like getting there. I just find it so interesting. Like
Mhm.
the different things. So like it was like literally just like perfect for me. And so that's why I'm excited for the Ravens of London because you're like, you're gonna love this too. I'm like, ooh, I can't wait that.
Yeah, no, all I can say is Callum is a terrible person, but you're gonna love him
Okay.
and you're gonna root for and against him at the same time.
Mm.
because it's kind of like the look into the psyche of a deeply broken person that is he's a little dicey. He's a he's a he's a character where you're like, all right, are you really about to like kill this many people for this one woman that you're like not treating great? And he's like, yeah, I'm about to. And then you're like, all right, pop off.
Like
Cool. And yeah, so I definitely say Callum will probably be your cup of tea. And I definitely wanted to write Sanguine too, because there's always the glory to like serial killers, but I wanted to include the women in there too that
Mhm.
were killed. And then people always like wipe their names from history. And you're
Mhm.
like, no, these people are important. Like, they're the reason why he's so prolific. Like, if he just killed cats or dogs, like, you'd know him as obviously a piece of shit. But
Yeah.
like, but like it's human beings that make these men so famous. And granted, there's like obviously women serial killers and things like that, but women in male dominated fields, that's like my favorite um my favorite trend right now. But yeah, I always try to like remember the victims, especially of
Mhm.
just men obsessed with power and just being vile human beings. The look into their minds is so fascinating to me.
Mhm.
So I think that's like with Sanguine, where you're like, what is going on? You're like, what is real? What is not? And yeah, so I definitely wanted to create the kind of like doubt in the reader's mind, like, is he just like insane? Yes. 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 Generally, you'll find that anyone I write is insane.
So if you
But
haven't picked up a Veil of Twilight or Sanguine, you should absolutely do so before April 8th, you said?
yeah, that's when the Ravens of London comes out.
With that. So they can get those two, and then you can just be prepped for April. Thank you, Ryan, so much for taking time to join with me today and chat all about all this fun stuff. I can't wait to see what else you come out with, and we will definitely talk again soon.
Yeah, thank you so much. I
Welcome.
appreciate it. Thank you.